What's it been like to you watching this play out on social media? Like, I've seen a lot of misinformation. I've seen videos like, look how awesome this video is. It's from 2014. The NPR had a thread. Maybe I'll try and find it and share it. Was like, here's all the things that have been going viral that are completely false.
I just think it's disastrous for our mental health that we're watching a war play out on social media.
A real like large scale war.
Yeah,
right?
and I think for young people in particular, like it really shakes your foundation, because you think to yourself, hey, I live in a city. Oh, look, I'm seeing these people like fleeing for their lives. I'm seeing apartment buildings getting shelled. I'm seeing
people making their own Molotov
tanks
cocktails
just roll into town. I'm seeing civilians just
Russia surround the capital city, whoever it is. Yeah.
It's like, I think it's just terrible for everyone's mental health and well-being on a level that I can't recall. Like I'm remembering when folks were watching TV in the 90s during the Gulf War and Gulf War II. Social media was not to this level, and you didn't have folks just broadcasting what was going on in those locations.
Ooh, you're like, well, World War II, right, was the first. I mean, maybe you could argue World War I, but World War II had that fundamental evil. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it was still distant. You're reading about it via newspapers, right? Here, you're witnessing, you're fucking living that evil, right?
Yes. I'm on social media, and one of the things I don't do is I don't amplify these videos that make you feel very intensely one thing or another. Like 999 times out of 1,000, I'm like, I'm not going to amplify this because, it just makes you feel very, very strongly one emotion, whether it's horror or anger, fear,
anxiety,
or even some of the positives where it's like, look at this.
There's some beautiful stories.
Or like, look at this moral actor. Look at this, so this is something that it's kind of tough for me to say, but I feel like even the positive stuff, like it's kind of like reinforcing reactivity that I don't think is very positive or healthy, where it's like pretty much if you home in on this beacon of like horrific or uplifting behavior, then you get whipsawed in various ways. Like if I'm magnifying something like super courageous and uplifting, then I feel like that person's then just going to go from there to another video that's horrifying, and then just wound up having their emotional pendulum just get like swing back and forth.
Ukraine algorithm, yeah,
and so it's not productive or healthy. I mean, like a lot of the way I live is to think, okay, what can I do about this?
I don't know how often we talk about the podcast, but between us, we talk a lot about performative empathy. It's one thing we struggle with as, let's call it, former Democrats or folks with a conscience and empathy, where it's like, there are things I can say that'll make you feel good and make me feel good and make me feel like I'm on the right team or doing the right, the things that are just or moral, right? But then there's stuff that needs to be done, which is more gritty and nitty gritty, but like it's solving the root causes of police brutality and what we all went through with George Floyd. Like, you can say the right things, you can put the Black Lives Matter flag up, you can do all the things, but then if you actually want to solve that problem, it's complicated, it's nuanced, that. And so in this situation, you have a bunch of people being like, I stand with Ukraine, here's a wholesome video, donate to Save the Children or XYZ. But at the end of the day, there's very little we can actually do, because unless you're going to pick up a gun, get to Ukraine and fight, or unless you're a government official that can control money, resources, food, XYZ in Russia's world, there's nothing you can. The money's not really helping as much as we hope. I'm sure it's like on the margins, sure, but it's not a money issue realistically. Do you agree with that? Like the performance, you think it's waking people up on putting the Ukraine flag in your Twitter bio isn't really particularly helping anything, or?
Well, I think sending money is always helpful. I mean, money's real.
It's real, but it's
humanitarian things. The expressing solidarity and alignment. In this instance, probably mildly.
I guess better than nothing. I guess. I don't know.
You do want to distinguish though between expression and action, as Yuval Levin put it.
Yeah.
And so on this one, there really is one human being at the center of it all, and his name is
one fucking guy.
Yeah, it's Vladimir Putin, and if there's a way that you could somehow influence what's going on in that state of mind, then for it. Other than that, try and help people
Mm-hmm.
at the margins. Yeah, but I do think that there's something really, really damaging about folks having these real life uh, conflicts and images playing out in social media in the way that they are. And, unfortunately, I think this is going to be a pattern where one of the things I put in the war on normal people is that if you had a trucker convoy, was my example, and then you had conflict break out around that trucker convoy, then you'd have these images go out to millions and millions of people of some isolated atrocity, and then it would end up inflaming folks in a particular way. And that's accurate. So let's say that the Ukraine conflict goes on for months, which I guess is at least conceivable. There's going to be a recurring issue as conflicts happen, as tragedies happen. It's something that I think is terrible for the next generation's mental health, truly.
Yeah.
I'm grateful I came of age in a time before social media.
So I've now written a book, and it's coming out soon. We'll talk about it at a different time, but on the attention economy and how that's changing everything. And there's just so many things that dominate our discourse for a hot moment, and then it's as if they never happened, right? And if you look back at your year or the past month or 6 months, you're like, holy crap, I was so pissed about that. And then it's just out of sight, out of mind. It's like we just go to different topics. And this one, I imagine, because it's not at home to us, it's not hitting home. To me, what's going to happen is it'll stop rating well on TV, and we'll move on to something else. The next trucker convoy, and I think that convoy is actually moving through Texas, the one that was in Canada. I think the election will happen. Biden doing something. Got the State of the Union that just happened. We haven't heard it yet, but it's we're recording this on Tuesday, but it's tonight for us. Do you think we lose? I guess maybe you're saying no one knows, but we probably start to lose attention on this, and that.
I think Ukraine remains front and center while the conflict is ongoing, and I do think that, God willing, it gets resolved in a matter of days or weeks and not months.
What does resolution look like? Putin is, like you said before, Putin declares a bullshit victory.
The best case scenario is Putin declares victory and goes back and says, hey, we made it safe for the separatist areas of Ukraine, problem solved, business as usual.
That's our best case scenario. And worst is nuclear war, right?
The worst case is nuclear conflict.
That's what's terrifying everybody.
Though I will say it would be entirely irrational for his argument to be Russia and Ukraine are one people, we are the same, and I'm gonna nuke you
for disagreeing.
like that makes zero sense. One of the things I found encouraging is that Russians are standing up.
The Russian people don't like this. It's a very unpopular war everywhere, including Russia.
Last I saw, they'd arrested several thousand people for protesting. So imagine you live under an authoritarian regime. Your leader is a former KGB strongman, and you decide to protest the war. I mean, you pretty much know you're going to get arrested and go to jail. This is not like a right to assemble situation.
No, it's not.
And so you have thousands of people willing to risk themselves that way, which means in my mind you have millions of people who feel the same way. There are a number of prominent figures in Russian society who are like, hey, this war is nothing that any of us wants. It really is one malignant person leading them to a war that most people thought was well out of the bounds of possibility. I was just reading that the U.S. was going around to folks being like, hey, FYI, we think that Russia may invade Ukraine, and everyone didn't believe it.
We're only 8 months away from the midterms. What do you think the political consequences are here in the United States, Democrats, Republicans? I have some thoughts too. I have some funny shit to share, but I want yours at first.
I think that this is an opportunity for Biden to refocus his presidency on leadership and competence and morality, and it sharpens the contrast between him and the Republicans in various ways. Now, most Republicans are anti-Putin, supportive of these measures. There are some marginal voices that aren't, but they're pretty much out there. So it's not like there's a sharp contrast where Biden wants to do one thing and Republicans want to do something else.
Yep.
But I think that this conflict in Biden's leadership probably at least mildly, maybe significantly helpful
Yep.
For his administration and Democrats.
So there's a poll that was circled around a lot, was that most people, both Democrats and Republicans, believe that this situation in Russia would not have happened if Trump was president, and that Putin was essentially implying, which I think was the case, and maybe some people believe this, that Putin's less scared than Biden than he would be of Trump. In doing this, felt that there was less consequences if he acted. I think if Biden, I don't know if Biden.
Well,
I don't
Trump
think,
just voiced approval for this entire course of action. So
he does, yes, but like it wouldn't have happened.
So
not
if
the
anything,
actions
it might
are
have
taken.
been the reverse, where Putin's like, "Hey, Trump's going to be cool with this, so let me do this thing," and then Trump, as president, is like, "Hey, let Russia do Russia."
Perhaps. Like, I'm not disagreeing. I'm not even trying to speculate what Trump would be doing. It was just the poll is like, would this have happened if Trump was president?
So
if
as you
Putin,
tell,
right?
I'm of the mind that this totally happens.
Oh yeah, I think it would too. I don't think that's an accurate, but I think that this is like the sentiment, and that's the message that Fox News and the Republican Party has been going with, like our weak president and country and lack of strategy and strength at home is hurting us abroad, and Putin thinks he can do whatever he wants without any consequences, right? And that is changing, and I do think this could change the tide. I think if Biden wants to win in 2024 or the Dems want to win, we have to have a obvious victory here. We have to put Putin in his place. I'm not sure how to do that, and people far smarter than I am, hopefully working on this. But I think that's the case. The other thing is saying is Dems suck at war. Like, I generally don't think we're great at this. And I don't it's mainly because you have Twitter savvy Dems saying dumb stuff. And I have my favorite one of the dumb things I've heard. I mean, by the way, Twitter is ripe for hot takes right now. If you want to see ridiculous takes, this is a good time for Twitter. But Eric Swalwell, who I like, we kind of had fun with him on the trail. He floated the idea, and I like when people float ideas out there. We float ideas out, but he floated the idea of kicking Russians in the U.S. out of our universities in retaliation to Putin invading Ukraine.
Yeah, that's insane.
And it's that kind of stuff that, like, what do Republicans do? They grab it, they clip it, they play it over and over. And Dems are more likely to say that as the party who's supposed to be rational. Republicans are always doing dumb shit.
I mean, Russians themselves aren't for this war. Russian Americans, I'm sure, are against this war.
My favorite Eric Swalwell story was when we were backstage, your first debate, and you show up in the line, like we're all back there, and you show up and you weren't wearing a tie. And he was like, "Oh, you're not wearing a tie? Damn, man, I was gonna do that." And he was like legit jealous and like kind of pissed at himself. I was like, hell yeah. That's my favorite Swalwell story.
Eric's a good dude, and I like Eric.
Yeah.
But and let me be the first to say that bad Twitter take does not a human make. So
no, it was that's fair.
But
you were aware of that. But this was on camera. He said it.
But I'm sure that. So your earlier point about, like, I made a comment a couple of podcasts ago about how Dems, I think, feel pressure to be muscular about war because they feel like it's a weak spot. They feel like Republicans,
that was my point,
have the hawkish thing, and so
Correct.
Democrats get painted as doves. They feel like they need to overcompensate somewhat.
Interesting.
The most famous example being Hillary's vote to authorize the Iraq war, and then later being like,
whoops.
and then Obama was like, yeah, that was misjudgment.
Terrible decision, yeah.
So on this one, Biden seems relatively balanced. There is like the hawkish element. What you described is like, look, we should be there fighting. There's a significant amount of me. It's like, look, like this is the most corrupt, unjustified, evil instigation of war against democracy that I can remember. And so if there's anything that you'd be fighting for, like, this would be it. Are Democrats generally painted into a corner? Like, Biden was meant to restore a degree of competent leadership. And I would say that is the projection, where it seems like he's in sync with the European leaders, that they're acting with a united front, that the U.S. has been competent in this. I think it helps them. And I feel like this portrait is vastly superior to a Trump-led portrait in another world where Trump were president right now.